So we're back on Shots from the Winchester. We have Alloyius Mcilwaine, international painter.
Yes,
he paints everything around Philadelphia.
It's good branding.
He's got a very distinct artwork. You'll see some of that on the show today. So make sure you guys like and subscribe to the show so we can keep growing. All right, so let's jump into the conversation. I know you are in with Maker's Mark. Yeah, so we're going to do a shot of Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
So let's get it in. Let's see. Every time we start the show, we usually start with a shot. So
yes, sir.
Doom.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Wow.
So good once it hits your lips.
Wow. Yeah. All right, so let's.
Will Ferrell quotes for the win.
So let's start out. Okay, so you're an international painter.
Yes, sir.
You've been painting for how long?
Birth. No, since I was actually able to. I think I started painting around probably the time I was like 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, before that it was crayons, just scribbling.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you do a lot of work around Philadelphia.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and you do a lot of work internationally too. And I've seen you on your Instagram. You've done a huge mural down in Washington, D.C. recently.
Yes, I did. That was an 120-foot mural for Gallery 64 in the Rubel Museum down there. That one kicked my butt. Yeah, that was a massive project, and especially a lot of times I'm freestyling, so especially when you're doing stuff off the top of your head, it's like mentally and physically draining.
Yeah.
But it's worth it at the end when you see the final product. Yeah, it was really cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what motivated you to start your business?
So it was really a matter of not wanting to do anything else but art. I remember, when I first got out of college and Mom's like, you have to get a job and you got to do this and do that. I'm like, I don't feel like doing any of this stuff. But I was working for the city of Philadelphia for a minute, and the actual job itself was important because I was working at a job making sure that women, minorities, and disabled weren't discriminated against in the workplace. But it was just so mentally draining for me, just having to deal with the discrimination and all that stuff. I was like, I'm just going to take the leap and go full force into what I actually want to do, which was creating art. So then I went full steam into it and got a couple lucky breaks, and yeah.
That was really good. Speaking of lucky breaks, you worked with the Eagles.
Yeah, especially in the last, I'd say, 2 years, I've done a lot of things for the big brands. I've done Netflix, Maker's Mark, Miller Lite, the Eagles, Pepsi, Apple TV, Paramount, Comcast, NBC Universal.
Wow.
It's been a busy couple of years.
Wow. I mean, and these people are finding you because of your ability to promote yourself online. And I notice you promote yourself constantly, which is something that's really smart, especially on social media. Tell me about that. Like, what's that about? Like, how did you get? Some people look at social media and they have a hard time trying to figure out how to break through. Like, tell me some of that.
Well, see, the interesting thing is that I feel like a lot of people, we have more opportunity now as artists than some people in the past may have had because of things like social media, because you can be your own best marketer, and that's kind of what you have to be when you have a business. And that's why I've had some success, because I went to school for business. Actually, I was a biochem major, and then I switched over to business later on. But it's helped me to figure out how to market my product, and it's like one of those things where you have to use social media to your advantage. And so what I wanted to do initially was I wanted to be in your face with my art so frequently that when you think about art projects popping up, you'd be like, oh, I know who does art. Let me send this project off to him. So that was kind of the thought process behind doing it. And now it's come to fruition. Wow. Now, like, you type in Philly street art if you're a business, and I pop up pretty frequently on Google. So that's how a lot of things come through now.
Yeah, a good example of how social media can help you grow your business.
Right.
So you also have a musical family.
I do.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. I heard a little story about Rick James.
Yeah, no, so it's interesting because I'm the one weirdo in the family because I'm the visual artist, but my grandfather played jazz saxophone with Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and Chubby Checker and Della Reese and a bunch of people. Whoa. My two uncles were in the Bar K's, and because of that, Rick James was like my uncle, godfather figure and stuff. Like, I didn't know that Rick wasn't my blood relative until I was probably about 17 years old when I was old enough to try to figure out where he was on the family tree.
Right.
And then I asked, and it's like, oh, well, no, he's more like your play uncle, your godfather, or something like that. And I was like, oh, that makes more sense. But yeah, we used to go visit him a couple times a year, especially when he played on the East Coast. Like if he was in DC, or when he was coming to Philly, or anything around the area, we would usually come and see him. There was one time we were having a hard time getting in, and Rick left the stage to go curse everybody else out and like get my family in here right now, which was a really funny thing. He was a hilarious. The funny thing about it is, like the Chappelle Show stuff, that was all true. Like he told me the stories and stuff. He said the only part that wasn't true was the part where they whooped his legs, but that was probably true too. But like he had one of those like larger than life personalities, like where like the whole thing with him going behind the bar, and like he was really like that. I remember actually right after the Chappelle Show aired, and me and my sister were just cracking up, getting in the car, like asking a bunch of questions, and so he was kind of describing his thought process to like as to why the stuff with Charlie was happening as we were going to a Chinese store to get some Chinese food in the hood in DC in a stretch white limo at 3 o'clock in the morning. So so basically like his whole thing with Charlie was like he the way he described it to me, he was like, you ever had that friend that because he's quiet you want to mess with him? And I was like, oh my God, I do have a friend like that. Yeah. He's quiet. And so I prod him because he's quiet. Yeah. And I was like, I do have a friend like that. And that's pretty much the whole, like, that's what it was. Like, Charlie was quiet, so he would mess with him, try to get him to open up. That created a whole lot of hilarity.
That's wild. And then your dad and your mom, not your mom, sorry, your dad and your sister.
My sister. My dad just joined the group Change, which was Luther Vandross's group. So he'll be doing some of Luther's songs. My sister has her first single on iTunes called All In. Wow. Yeah, it's really super, super talented family.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, and you chose art. And that was the direction that you wanted to go with. Singing wasn't a thing. Or do you sing? Can you sing?
Here's the funny thing. Yeah. When I was younger, I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. My mom had me in a New Edition cover band, and so I had to like wear my all white suit, and I was Ralph Tresvant.
Oh my God!
So we did a couple performances. It really wasn't my thing though. I like the the physical, like the drawing and the painting and stuff. That was more my speed. But I remember I was in the New Edition cover band when I was younger.
Wow,
that was the thing.
You have pictures of that?
If I look hard enough, probably. Yeah.
That'd be great to see that.
Like for a while too, so it was very it was funny.
So let me ask you a little bit more, going back into your art. What motivates your art? What motivates your look? Because you have a specific look. Like if you see your work, like I was driving in where was I at? I was in Fairhill, and I was on my way up to Fairhill, and I saw your work on the corner of a building. I was just like, that's Alloyius. Every time I see your stuff, I just know it's you.
Well, it's really interesting because with me and art's something that I kind of have to do. Yeah. Like if I don't do a certain amount of art and get like a certain amount of ideas out of my head, it's like I feel like a little bit of anxiety. So it's when it comes down to art, it's something that I have to do in order to get ideas and energy out of my system. Like I have to make new things. But as far as the style is concerned, it's one of those things you learn from taking business courses and about marketing. Like you have to find something that like separates you from everyone else, and like once you find that one thing, it's like your branding, and then like people start to recognize you for your brand. So that was my thought. And when you first start out, you test out a whole lot of different ideas, and I think I wound up coming back to something that I did naturally just in my sketchbooks and stuff when I'm in high school and stuff, just doodling in my notebooks. I would just layer shapes. Yeah. So it went from kind of like that early version of it to me kind of developing it into a visual language, which now the shapes actually have meanings and stuff to them. Right. So when I'm creating these shapes, like I call them kudo glyphs. Kudos is in positive affirmations, and glyphs in symbol form. So I'm just trying to put positive messages and stuff out there and hide little things like that in all of my work.
Yeah, I noticed that you have a leaf form shape.
Yeah, it means growth.
That's growth. Cool. I've seen that in the Eagles painting that you did. I saw that in a few other art pieces that you've also
That's one of my favorites. I do that one a lot. That's one of the ones that kind of signifies like what I stand for, just like growth as a human, and also in like whatever you're doing.
I love that you have a message behind the work that you do too, because that's also very informative. In Philadelphia and abroad too. To segue, I know you have some interesting stories about your international paint jobs.
Yeah. Well, I've painted in a lot of different places. I have 6 murals in Paris. I've did one in Shoreditch in London with Render Writer. I did Costa Rica, Casablanca, Punta Cana.
Wow.
Tulum. Bunch of other places that I'm blanking on right now.
Yeah.
But the interesting one is it was in Tokyo because it's funny. I'm going out there to visit my cousin who actually was like on one of the military bases out there, and so we're staying with him, and he had a friend who was like an art school teacher, and so like I contacted her probably like 3-4 weeks before I headed to Tokyo. I was like, hey, coming out, just looking to paint some murals somewhere. Where are some places where I can paint some murals? So she was like, I got you covered. I'll find you some spots. So, the whole time, like I go down thinking that I have like a spot and stuff. And so she tells me about the one spot, but it was like, I would have had to stand kind of like in the middle of the street, like while traffic was coming.
Oh, wow.
And I thought it was like super dangerous to do that because there was no sidewalk. I literally would have been in the middle of the street painting. Well, not in the middle of the street, but like the wall is on like a road, like a highway thing.
Yeah.
There's no cones. I don't have like one of those jackets on that would like signify like, hey, someone's standing here that you could possibly hit and kill. So I was like, no, that seems a little dangerous. Is there anything else? She was like, okay, well, I think you should be able to paint. You should be able to paint here, right? And I was like, okay, cool. So she takes me to the spot. It's like a bridge and stuff. It's not a lot of people around there. I was like, oh, okay. I paint bridges, under bridges in Philly all the time. It's really not a big deal. And then leaves me there. Yeah. So then, because this is like just Tokyo's culture, like one of the homeless guys came by and told the police on me that I was painting on the bridge. And so they come and they take me to the station. And I was detained for 6 hours there. Wow. And here's the craziest thing about everything. The police officers, it wasn't a big deal to them because like you're not dealing with anybody who did like a hard crime like stealing or shooting or anything. Like I was painting a woman on the wall. Yeah, most of them thought it was funny. So I'm in there, and the lead detective comes in because he was one of the only ones who spoke fluent English. Yeah. Out of all places, he had spent some time in Allentown.
Oh, so that was a good connection.
Out of all places, just by luck.
Allentown, of all places.
And so we were there for a while, and we were going through the whole process because he was like, the problem is we have to contact the person who's on the property and see like what they say and stuff. He was like, is there a way to get the paint stuff off the wall and all? And so I was just answering. He was like, he asked me why I did it. I was like, I was just trying to leave my gift to Tokyo before I left, which is literally what I was doing. I just wanted to leave like a little like a cultural thing because I was painting a beautiful Japanese woman with like flowers and stuff all around her. So I was just trying to do something dope before I left. And so it took a while to get everything situated. But the good thing about it was that the guy whose wall I painted on, he came in. He didn't speak a lot of English, but he said "nice art" when he came in. Nice. And so the detective came in. And he was like, "So I have good news and bad news." He was like, the good news is that we're letting you go right now. You don't have any like points on your passport or anything. Like everything's all good. Bad news is you're gonna have to pay 60,000 yen. And I was like, 60,000. That's $600, right?
Jeez. Yeah. I just had to shell it out.
I was like, are we good? And he was like, yeah, let me go laminate it so you have a really expensive souvenir. So after I paid for everything, they gave me the souvenir. I literally was posing with the Tokyo detectives like this, like with my fine and stuff. So like inside the Tokyo jail, there's literally pictures of me with the detectives like holding up my fine from doing street art where I wasn't supposed to, apparently.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's a whole, like, looking back, it's funny. Like, it's scary when it's happening, and I wasn't even scared for me, but, like, I was like, I know my parents are freaking out. Yeah. Because I knew that it wasn't something that was so serious that I was going to be, like, if I was in there, I was going to be there for a while. I think, they said, like, tops, if I had to be in the jail, I would have been there for, like, 3 days. Yeah. But it would have sucked, though, because it was around Christmas. So I might have had a hard time getting back home before Christmas.
Absolutely.
Which would have stunk. But everything worked out well. I have, like, some kind of like plot armor. Like, so,
yeah. Oh man, that's
everything
wild.
worked out. Now I have a funny story and a laminated fine from doing street art in Tokyo. So my street cred went up.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, my cousins made me a T-shirt. Like when I got back home for Christmas, it said "Free Alloyius." So you might see "Free Alloyius" on the back of it. I still rock it. It's funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what's
Good
what's
story.
the future for you?
Ooh, I have so many things that I want to do. Like one of the plans is to paint at least one mural on every continent and in all 50 states in the U.S. territories as well.
That's ambitious.
I have, yeah. So right now I have 4 continents down. I have 22 states down.
Nice.
So making some headway there. And then just getting my merchandising, books, clothing, just like all cups, umbrellas, like everything. Just because, especially when I start getting into my like 60s or 70s stuff, I'm not going to be climbing up ladders and on escalating lifts, 50 feet up in the air doing these things. So I want to have merchandising. So my brand is still out there, and I still have like, revenue and income coming in.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. But hopefully this is bucket list goals.
Yeah.
I want to do something for Marvel before.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
that's very high up, because that basically comic books taught me how to draw.
Right.
So that's very high up on my list.
That's another thing I wanted to talk to you. Your influence in art, you said, comes from cartoons, comic books.
My first introduction to art really was through comic books, because my mom and my uncle were comic book collectors, and they would, especially because comic books have a lot of color and there's a lot of, so they knew that I would enjoy it, because I'm very like kinetic energy kind of person. Like that's how I always was. So they put comics in front of me, and so my first intro into doing art was me copying comic book characters. And that's how I learned techniques and how to draw. Like I'm self-taught. Like I taught myself from redrawing comic books and doing that kind of thing. So that was the genesis of it. And then as I got older, you start learning about the masters. I became a big Van Gogh fan. You start learning about some of the more contemporary artists, the Basquiat's and the Keith Harings and the people like that. And then I got, especially in the 90s, I got really into graffiti and street art, which really kind of propelled me into like what I'm doing right now, because it's a mixture of all those things. It's like comic book style, some contemporary art style mixed in, and graffiti and street art, like all that in one. That's like how I would describe my style. So they all had a bit of an influence.
And your artwork, you go from acrylics, but majority of what you're doing is spray paint.
Yeah, so if I'm doing a wall, more than likely it's going to be spray paint.
Yeah.
It's especially for larger surfaces, just quicker to move with spray paint. It's one of those things where it's hard. It's not easy to learn how to do, but once you understand how it works, it's so quick. A lot of these like 10 foot by 10 foot or 12 by 12 foot murals that I'm doing, even when they're people, I'm knocking out in 3.5, 4 hours.
Wow. Yeah.
So if I'm doing it on walls, it's usually spray paint, but if I'm doing it on canvas, it's acrylic.
Wow, man, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today, especially like that. I've been wanting to get you on the show for a minute because you've got such an interesting story. You got great energy. Philly loves you. And
I'm the unofficial emperor of Philadelphia. That's what it says on my Twitter, at least. Maybe I should get that verified now. Get the blue check, like Emperor of Philadelphia. And pay $8 to get that verified.
That would be awesome, man.
I'll holler at Elon about that.
I know, right? Catch up to that.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on social media?
They can find me at Cultures Clothing on Instagram. I have a lot of new stuff coming out from the clothing line soon.
Oh, nice.
On TikTok, it's at Alloyius Mcilwaine. Facebook.com/Alloyius Mcilwaine Art for my Facebook group. Then my website, AlloyiusMcIlwaineArt.com.
Nice. Man, thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
my pleasure,
definitely.
Man.
We'll get you back on when you get something, when you have one of those big events, because you did mention you have something going on. If we can mention this John Legend, something that's happening. So that's something that's coming down the pipe as well. So.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of really cool stuff coming down the pipe. Doing a mural, John Legend mural with Mural Arts. That's one of the really cool things I have coming up. Doing some stuff with Bungee brand down at Art Basel. Art Basel's coming in a couple of weeks. So I'm doing some fun
Nice.
stuff there. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming. 2 magazine covers coming out for Bella Magazine within the next couple of weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
Dude, keep it going, man.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah, man.
Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Check you out later.